All right. So we have the whole team here. We have Sean, Jacob, and Connie are helping me out today, and welcome everyone. So the goal today is really three things. We want to look at what is Instruct, and I think you might have an idea. That's why you're here today. But if not, we're going to do a quick review. And then the more important question is why Instruct? Like, why would you use a tool like this? And then the most fun part, I think, of the webinar is we're going to get you access to create your own amazing experiences. So I'm TJ Randall. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Instruqt, and I'm stepping in for my coworker Sean today. So fun fact about myself, as I was working on this webinar, finalizing the slides, I realized that today, 33 years ago, I left for the Navy. So if you were thinking, man, this guy looks old, I just confirmed it for you. So what's Instruqt? What are we going to talk about today? Well, Instruqt is a virtual IT labs product for product-led growth. And what does that really mean at the end of the day? That's a lot of words to say. We allow you to build hands-on tutorials, hands-on demos, and training. You don't need an engineering team to do this. This is real live running software in a very secure environment, which is going to help you drive adoption at scale. Right? This is how you're going to engage those users. You're going to get them excited about your technology and give them the ability to try it out for themselves. Excuse me. And why do we do this? Like, why hands-on labs? Well, I think this is no secret to anybody, but excuse me, when we think of our developer persona, our Guilfoyle, we know there's a few things that we know about this persona that are important for us, especially in terms of lead generation and product marketing. Is developers, they want real working software to evaluate. They don't want screen walkthroughs. They don't want videos. They don't want, pre-canned demos. They want to get their hands on it. They want to roll up their sleeves, and they don't want to talk to sales to do that. Okay. What they're really looking for is they want the experience and they want expertise and best practice to help them learn. And generally speaking, and what we find even here at Instruqt is there's almost like a path for their learning. So they're going to get the software, they're going to install it, and then when they get stuck, they'll look for examples and templates and documentation. Then they'll finally raise their hand. So if you have that mindset, if you're thinking about like, how do I communicate with these folks? It's pretty important. You have to remember. So, when you're doing that, you probably don't want a gated access where it's like very complicated to get access to your software, or these like large kludgy installations of your software just to get it running. And of course, the other side, the sales side, how, the screening calls and the BDRs and all of that kind of how, getting them set up for a demo. Just get your software in their hands and let them get working with it. And at Instruqt, I think we have a great story for that. We kind of say we like to make learning fun again. Instruqt came from a company where HashiCorp partnered with Instruqt, and they even created an experience where they can run their HashiCorp software on an arcade console just like this. This is a phenomenal presentation that we'll share the link with you on. So if you think about your learning and how you engage learners, we really want you to think as content creators is how do I get their attention? How do I make it fun? How do I make it engaging? And we have a rich history of being able to do that with our technical, buyers. So again, not to go too deep into the slides, but we're going to show you a lot about Instruqt here next. So just from a high level overview, I want to make sure you understand the key things here. We want to make adoption of your solution very easy using Instruqt. And we've talked about that. We know that it's real technology using real infrastructure, even for complex IT environments. So these aren't just simplistic, one VM type of situations. So we're going to be able to help you integrate with Azure or AWS or Google Cloud. It works with all flavors of operating systems like Linux or Windows, and you can leverage Docker. Kubernetes is probably the most popular way to engage, and you can use K3s or you can actually use full-blown Kubernetes. And then when we think about like the programming languages, this tends to be a topic customers ask us is what, programming languages can we engage with this with our technical, targets? And really you can use all major languages. So we're really breaking down those barriers for people to engage with your solution. And the good news is, and we'll look at this today, we have built-in templates and examples that you can start with. And then that way you can kind of get into your own and create your own engaging content. And last but not least, this question comes up quite a bit is, do you have a command line or a CLI interface for power users? And the answer is yes. Today, we'll do everything in the UI because, of course, during a workshop, it's a little easier for to see everything in that way. But just know that what we're doing today in the UI, can also have your power technical users use the command line to do as well. And I stole Sean's line for the slide here, but Sean is famous for saying, if you can dream it, you can build it with Instruqt. You can build phenomenal experiences for your users. And really, that's it. So we're going to move on pretty quickly in this workshop because we want it to be a workshop. We want you to experience Instruqt. So if you think about what's coming, think about your organization having a place where users come to basically take different types of engagements with your software. They can be virtual labs. They can be, 101 type classes, like what is your technology and what does it do? They can be certifications. You can plug these into your LMS so they could actually go to your LMS to do this type of engagement. But the goal for today's workshop, we really want you to be able to, walk away saying, I know how to get started. I know how all of this kind of works, and you have access to environment to actually start to build that. So let's go here. Let's get you running in Instruqt. So we're going to do two things. We're going to get you access to a training environment. So this is an environment in which you will be able to log in and do all of the work that I'm about to show you. So what we've been doing during the workshops, and I think it works quite well, Sean and Jacob are my wingmen here. And what my ask is, if you put your email address in the chat, what we'll do is we'll create your login for the environment while I go through the different aspects of it to kind of show that to you. And just my one reminder to you, this is a kind of public open environment. So when you're creating that, just be conscious of the fact that you're working in a big sandbox with a lot of people. And then the goal, of course, of this is to give you a walkthrough of kind of all the aspects of getting started. So as we go through this, please don't hesitate to ask questions or raise your hand or any of those things as well. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to, look at that, I'm escaping out of the mode. Okay, first and foremost, what are we going to build today? So if you think about Instruqt, really we took a gamified approach to your content. And what we want to be able to do is we call it a track, and a track is a series of challenges. So if you think about how you're trying to engage with those personas, let's say, for example, it's a developer, and you want to teach them the most valuable things about your solution, you have the opportunity to create multiple challenges and check things to make sure that they actually learn that. That's that kind of gamified approach that I talked about. It's really this nice interactive way to engage with your users. And the nice thing is these challenges actually tend to be kind of short. So instead of doing these like these large, 5-day, 8 hours a day kind of trainings that are kind of arduous in terms of like a ton of content, we want you as a content creator to think about, how do I break that down into bite-sized challenges? And then we'll check their work, give that feedback to the user, and they know that they're actually progressing as well. The one thing I did here too, just so as we go through and being cognizant of time, is we will share all these links with you. This is our documentation page. We're quite proud of it. We've worked really hard and taken a lot of customer feedback. So one of the things that we know that people use is obviously the documentation when they get stuck. Please know that if you have any feedback on any of the things I shared today, please share that as well. But really what we've set up for you is a nice way to get started, a very easy way to get started in our quick start guide. And from there, you can go into all the different details of all the different scenarios that you're likely to run into. Okay, so what does this all mean? So let's get started in Instruqt and really dive in. I like to showcase this. This is one that Sean authored as well. Totally fun example of how you can leverage Instruqt. So Sean basically took Palace Arcade, which is a containerized version of the arcade games that we all loved from the 1980s. And he created this like engagement track. And what does that mean at the end of the day? Like we talked about, this track has one challenge. So the challenge is you get to play the game. And if we kind of navigate around the UI here, when you get into Instruqt and you start working, you'll see as you build your track, you have the opportunity to edit your challenges, which we're going to dive into in a moment. But from a high level, You can deploy these tracks so you can work on them, in a remote way before they're published to the world. You have the ability to share them in a secure manner. So like all of our tracks have to have a token or a login authentication behind them. So it's, you're not going to have like crypto miners just grabbing an environment and stealing that. You have a very controlled way to share this. And then when we get down into the details, you even have the power to do things like configure your sandbox. Like a common question that comes up, this is running one simple environment, but you have to remember at the end of the day, our containers actually look a lot bigger and more complex than this. So just know that when we're talking about these tracks, you have full access to the containers that will be running your software, as well as the lifecycle scripts that you want to run to set up those environments. A common question tends to be is, how do I pre-install software into one of my containers, for my user? Or how do I set up certain environment variables? You have full access to that. In essence, you're actually running your software within the Instruqt environment so that you're able to control those pieces. And then the other piece to this, let's switch around. Let's talk about the track itself. When you think about what you're building here, you really, a few key pieces of information is, obviously you're going to title your track and make it understandable. You can do all kinds of fun things in terms of setting your icons, your markdown, all of those things. I like to challenge people when I look at the work that they do. You're a content creator, you need to make this engaging and get their attention. So, use your style there. And we have, again, I'm using the UI for this webinar. We can also do all of this from our command line interface, but you have the ability to edit all of the different pieces of that track. And now that we've taught you enough with Palace Arcade, let's do one more thing so we can keep you going. When I hit start track, let's orient you a little bit. I've got my launch button at the bottom right hand corner. I'm going to hit that while I'm talking. This is actually spinning up my environment in our sandbox behind the scenes. As a content creator, you have a really great opportunity at this moment to engage your users, because of course an environment might take a few minutes, or hopefully not too long, but it'll take a little bit of time to spin up. During that time, you have the opportunity to capture them with notes, with video content, all types of different styles that you can use. So we call these notes, and I think this is a really nice way to kind of set up your learning. So the fun thing that here with this, we have a little history lesson of, Pong. Imagine with your software, if you were looking at this and you said, maybe you embed a video from one of your product team that says, hey, we're going to take you through a particular training. This is the important things that you're going to need to know as you go through this training. So you have full access there. The other piece, and I'm going to hit start in just a second, notice we're going to keep track of your progress, because that's important for our users up top here, to be able to help them understand where are they in the process. So obviously here on my left-hand side, here's my environment that's running. I could go ahead and I can play some video games. We're going to share this link with you now, after the webinar. If I share it now, everybody will start playing Donkey Kong. The last thing to cover, I think that's really important about this environment, is the fact that on the right-hand side is where we're taking our user through the instructions that you want them to go through. And I'm going to show you a little bit more rich example in just a second. But just know from an orientation perspective, as a user, I have these tabs across the top. So I have Palace Arcade. I have one tab for this particular one. I'll show you a few more. But think about how you want your user to engage with you on their learning journey. So maybe they need a command line, and they also need a website for the docs, and they also need a UI because it's a SaaS-based product, and they need to interact with the front end of your product as well. So those different tabs is you have access to have different interaction points with your users as well. So let's pretend I did my track. Didn't we do a great job? Last but not least, overall for Instruqt, you're going to be able to get feedback from your users. This is actually super important. We want to make sure that as content creators, we understand, are people enjoying what they're doing? Do they like it? What's the kind of feedback? So this is an area where we can go ahead and capture that, and we can go ahead and have our users just give us the feedback of what they thought of the track. Cool. So that's an example of a very simple track just to get you oriented around Instruqt. And as when we give you access for this, I'm going to show you a couple different areas that you'll want to use. So for example, you're going to have access to Instruct Examples. So depending on your scenario, you'll be able to go in and you'll have different examples available to you. Let's say you're running on AKS, right? You have Azure Kubernetes service running, and you can go ahead and pull down this example as something that if you want to build on that. The other piece that you will have access to is tutorials. And these are growing every single day, but these are really great ways for you to kind of say, well, I kind of get what we're doing with Instruqt, but I'm not exactly sure what I want to present from the start. We have some tutorials that we can share. And like we talked about earlier, in terms of like where people go for information, we not only have these documented in our doc site, we not only have real examples for you. I like to actually shout out that we have videos as well. So a lot of times this is a nice way for you to share with your teams different concepts, like whether you want to add quizzes or how to create track invites. So just know that the Instruqt page, this is constantly growing in terms of what we're providing for content. So just another great way to engage with you and let you see like what's possible and what other users are doing. So let's dive into the gory details. We showed you the arcade palace. Now I'm going to dive into, this is the platform demo that I will be walking through. So let me kick this off because it's going to take a moment. And remember, here we can, this is our ability to go ahead and capture information, engage users. One thing that people often do is they have multiple types of media that they can use to engage users with the content as well. While that's running, I'm going to go backwards for a second. Sorry to flip around, but let's look at this first track, this Welcome to Instruct track, because that's what we're going to be playing in just a moment. Obviously, we saw that on the first screen. We saw the title. We know that there's some challenges coming. We have the markdown of what we did. Notice, by the way, if you're not familiar with Markdown, it's super easy to use and learn. We always provide these Markdown cheat sheet links for you, so you can go ahead and grab that and have that kind of open while you're doing that. And then as we work through this track, you're going to see a few things. Remember, I said we had our note screen. You have the ability to add different varieties of notes that users have access to. These are the tabs. So like when we go back to the screen, you'll see we have actually 3 tabs running: a website, a code editor, and a terminal. And last but not least, this is another area where we think about this script. So we had our lifecycle scripts that we wanted to manage. We're also going to have scripts that we want to run within the actual environment itself. So you can see that we have concepts like setup scripts and cleanup scripts as well. So if you're running your software and you need to do certain actions in order to get that environment set up, or as we tear it down, remember you have full access to those different aspects of running your software. I think that's really important to remember because generally speaking, people are very comfortable for how it runs today. When we get it here running, we can have the same experience. We can get that running very quickly. So what does that all mean? What it means is let's start the track. And now if I'm a learner coming in for the first time, you can see that, as we look at the different tabs, we can go ahead and we can think about how do we challenge our users? Like what's the most important things that we want to showcase in our products to help them understand what's available? And I think because of the way I'm scanning my screen, my markdown looks a little funky to me, but that's okay. For this one, this example, obviously this is a pretty less technical example, but still relevant, where you can walk through users, like what's available to them, what's tab navigation, like how do they orient themselves around? And one little hint for you as content creators, sometimes we'll have customers say, well, we want to track, but we don't actually need them to do anything. It's more of like an informational one. Notice we can always add things like skip and autocomplete to that. That's actually a nice way too for sometimes you'll have those tracks where people will just kind of move through quickly as a bit of almost like a first 101 learning, and they can quickly go through those tracks. But as learners now, the biggest thing I like to coach people on is you want to think about how you're going to build on people's learnings. So for example, let's pretend that our first track that we just did was all about, your software, which is the Ghost blog service. And in order to do that, it's a critical thing for our admins to be able to run that service. So notice I've offered 2 tabs. I've got a little connection thing going on here, which is maybe could be part of the demo here. But as I walk through this, let's look through this right-hand panel. as a content creator, it's really critical that you're speaking to the user in a very concise way, and so that they can kind of orient as well as understand what's happening. And in here, you'll be able to see things like we're orienting the user around why we're doing this, and then we could immediately get them into the technical aspects of your product. So I think I'm having a bit of an issue here with my technical setup. I'm actually on the road today, and I think I'm getting blocked from loading this, but that's the way it always works. So anyways, last, but I think an important thing to remember here is as you think about your software, as you think about what you're trying to teach your users to do, I want you to really think about like what's valuable in your software, and let's walk them through that. At the end of the day, we go through a challenge. They can do all kinds of things. So Sean, is that you?
Oh, sorry. It looks like the demo gods are angry. Why is log loading? Hang tight. I have another link that should be working, right?
Okay. So. All right. I think people kind of understand that. I mean, again, simple example, but thanks, Sean. One thing I will say though, with the challenges is, let's say you're a SaaS, whether you're a SaaS-based product, whether you're an on-prem installation, any type of product, your challenges are your areas in which you can use technical scripting to basically do all kinds of fun things. So it doesn't matter if like your software is like a SaaS product, you can make API calls and do checks and things like that as well. So you have a real opportunity at the check stage to really enforce with your learner, were they able to accomplish that? So we're going to go ahead and
it's almost exactly the same track, but should run a little more smoothly if you want to jump over to the one in the chat window.
All right, let's see.
Or our host panelist chat.
Okay, let's try it out.
If that works.
Thank goodness Sean's here for us, huh? All right, so I'm going to open one new tab here. We'll do this.
There we go.
You can tell whenever a manager is doing something, he has 150 tabs open. So. Okay, there we go. Having a little
you saw the word. Famous last words, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody cross your fingers.
Oh, I see what you did. Okay, cool. All right.
This is the streamlined, new and improved version. So it should hopefully behave itself.
All right. So actually, this is a great way to shout out a little bit here to your learner community. This is a challenge that sometimes people will talk to us about, is you'll get users that come to your website and they already understand the kind of the 101 things, that they got it. They know why you're here. They want to kind of hop in. Again, we think about the developer. They kind of want to hop in where they want to hop in. Notice I'm able to skip to those types of things as well. And as a learner, that's fine because we've been challenged. If you think about these learnings, they're building on each other. But we can go ahead and we can allow your users to kind of meet them where they are, also in terms of their kind of life cycle as well. So these kind of concepts like skipping is really nice in two ways. It's nice for your more advanced users who, can go to a different level, or it can actually help you if people have to catch up. We've had that as well. I don't know about you, but as a trainer, I've had in situations where, like you get somebody who comes late and they need to hop ahead. Okay.
I call that the fast forward button.
The fast forward button, exactly. So maybe not for your 101 class, but maybe your more technical classes, the fast forward is good. Okay, so this example, for the workshop, again, it's to give you the idea of, obviously you want your user to be able to interact with your software. It's not just a screenshot of your machine and like the person's pushing buttons. This is actually your software that's running. So often, you'll need like a code editor to actually do work within your product to make it, part of the solution to understand what the value drivers are. So let's take a look at what that could look like. So imagine you're selling your software, and this is always my favorite. You're selling your software and you want to be able to say like, okay, Mr. Customer, here's your terminal command line, which we can provide for you. And here's the task that I want you to do in order to understand like, oh, this is how easy it is to use my product. Well, here I am inside of Instruqt. I'm running in a secure container, and I'm actually can present, for example, a code editor for them to do their work. So I think this is really important for two things. One, not all of our users are going to be power users on that command line. So giving them options of how to interact with your software is just critical. I think it's super important to think about who your audience is and how they will interact. And two, and more personally, because I've been using Instruqt for quite a number of years, I think it's just great to be able to provide something like the code editor right inside the same environment. So now I can have my multiple tabs. I have my instructions on the right-hand side, and I can say, okay, Mr. Customer, here's why this particular feature or set of features is super valuable, and I want you to walk through an example to do it for yourself. So you can see, this is a visual code server, which we love here. And you could do all kinds of fun things. You can run terminals, etc. So hopefully that makes sense for you in terms of like the opportunity you have in order to engage with your users and how you want to engage with them. So when you're creating your content, you have multiple ways in which to do that. Cool.
Anyone who's ever had to teach a room full of newbies BI will appreciate this feature.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. It's if we think about it, you can't always pick your audience, so to speak, right? So it's really nice to be able to have multiple ways to interact. I mean, I think that's true, pretty much of everything. And, the one thing is the subtle thing, but you notice my progress bars keep going up. I point that out simply because when I think about things like lead generation, it's super exciting. Somebody's come to your website. They want to engage with your software. Your content creators have done an amazing job of creating content. But again, people are spending their time here. And we're trying really hard here at Instruqt to build different ways to keep the person going, to say, hey, this is cool, let me do something else. Because at the end of the day, that's what we ultimately want, right? We want happy learners who actually finish the work and kind of understand what you were trying to accomplish. So my progress bar is just kind of like one subtle way to do that. Now let's get into the guts of like how we can engage with a user as well. So for this example, this could be maybe one of the more technical aspects of your product. So like, let's say you're running Kubernetes, and if anybody's running Kubernetes, we all know it's pretty challenging in its own right. When it's running, it's phenomenal, but there could be some nuances there that you need to teach your users to say, hey, this is important. So one nice thing is, for this scenario, we'll say, okay, this is a valuable thing. You can go ahead and set up your single node Kubernetes cluster. Notice as a learner, I can go ahead and I can basically copy and paste my commands in, so I can get that, real-time interaction. This is a running environment, so I can do whatever I want to do in terms of like all the normal tasks. I will always overstate, this is a secure environment, so it's not like they're open to the world. You have them in a very controlled environment that they can, do their work they need to do, but not too much access. And as I go through this, you can see it's actually a pretty simple example, but here I am, I'm able to copy some commands and get things running. And one thing I would say as a content creator is explaining to them why these things are important is critical for you, right? So you don't want to create content where they're just clicking through commands. That could be important for them to understand what commands they need to run. But I always like to coach people and say, hey, help me understand, like, why is what I'm running so important to my overall objective? And so that's what we try to do here, because we had to run some Kubernetes to get things set up, but now we actually get to do the fun thing, which is apparently we have a juice shop that we're going to be installing, and we're going to install that. And this is where I love the fact that we can go ahead and we can just paste things in multiple commands, because as we know, installing the software probably isn't the value driver that you're trying to showcase for your product. So we can go ahead and we can just kind of copy those in. So it's really, and again, I will reiterate, if these are things you want to do beforehand, remember we showed you the lifecycle scripts and the setup scripts. You can actually do some of these before the user even gets into the environment as well. So think about that balance of like, what do you want them to do while they're engaged with you? And what do you want to just take care of in the background in terms of setup and configuration that, they might not need to know. So here I am, we're actually probably teaching in this scenario, if you were, if Juiceware, or what is it, Juice Shop was your software product, it's probably important if I'm an administrator to be able to understand concepts like, how do I, watch my environment? How do I set that up? What types of things do I do? We'll get statuses for that environment. And then let's see, we got to expose a port. So it looks like I'm going to be a full Juice Shop admin when I'm done with this guy. So we'll go ahead and do this. Run my environment. So when we finish this, we didn't put a check here, which in my mind, for example, this is something that I would check to be able to say like, okay, Mr. Admin, why, what was the number one thing that you had to be able to do in order to get Juice Shop running? And you can actually create those quizzes on the fly. So you'll be able to create that quiz and check that before they can move on. And you can see here, the bells and whistles go off. And here I am, I'm running my nice Juice Shop application. So hopefully that makes sense in terms of like the accessibility, like the areas they can access and what you can do with your software in terms of the environment that you've set up in the background and the types of work that you can do. Let's hit next. And hopefully going through all these things, you're getting your kind of creative juices flowing. You're starting to think about like what's possible with your solutions. So the nice thing is Instruqt can be used within any software. This is a little bit of a call out because it's providing fully functional cloud accounts and Kubernetes clusters. And if you've ever had to deal with things like, shared cloud accounts, we all know that's pretty much a nightmare. You don't have to go down that path anymore. We can even support you with your cloud accounts as part of your overall solution. So I think that's really important to remember when you think about not just how your software is running, but who has access to that software. Okay, so you can see we have cloud clients. We're able to provide that as part of your service offering that you have with Instruqt. And we're back to Sean. Once you have access, if you can dream it, you can build it. So you can build these secure environments with very secure credentials, and then you can go ahead and have your users diving in and actually doing real valuable learning within your environment. And I like to call out, it is safe and secure, it's easy to use. So the reason why I call that out, one of the things people will ask is like, hey, if I'm running this in Instruqt, I want to make sure I'm protected. I can assure you these sandboxes are super secure, and it's just a great way for you to expose your technology in a very secure way. And nobody breaks anything, right? It's their environment. They get to do whatever they want. When they're over, we just tear that down.
Yeah, so security teams especially love Instruqt because not our problem, right? They're like, the vendor can take care of it. I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Precisely. Exactly. So it's really nice way, like I see a lot of customers today when they come to us, they've been trying to spin up like a open source dev environment, or something like an open sandbox where people can just come in, and of course then you're kind of opening up to the world. So again, quizzes, interaction points, you got to think about that as a content creator. Like, how do you want to capture, people? And then the last thing I like to call out too is, as you're building your example, you're going to have access to the environment. You're going to be able to build, great content. I want you to think about like, where are you actually going to be meeting your users in the first place? So a lot of times, if you think about like customers will have like LMS systems already where they're leveraging that for users to be able to walk in and engage with the content. Or you might actually embed this in your website. So you might actually have users landing on your front page and coming in for a really small engagement track, and then have that gate. We talked about no gated access. How nice would it be able to provide a live Instruct track on your website? Users can go through, run some quick examples, and then they can go ahead and you can capture that information. So here we are, we finished. Hopefully I've gone through a lot of different features, a lot of different areas of the tool. And now I want to be able to get you in there and get you this tutorials page. So I haven't had chat open. If anybody wants access, all our guests here today, I invite you, if you could just please send your email address over in the chat window. And what that allows us to do is we will add you to the environment, the training environment. And
so TJ, we're having a little bit of a technical snafu, and that chat is disabled somehow. And maybe you as host can turn it on. One of our users submitted a question to let us know that he couldn't chat.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, let's
oh, I see. You've been answering Q&A cloud here. Oh boy, man. Yeah, so first the environment. Come on, what's going on?
I know
here?
It's a day. Somewhere in the webinar settings, there has to be a way to flip chat on.
Hey, look at that. Sean's on the fly. Yeah, it looks like we can ask questions. So if you're ready, if you want to go ahead and not ask a question, but give us your email address via that channel, we can do that as well. And I added this last slide as well. If you could see, really the next step is, you get access to the environment. You have a full Instruqt environment, which you can log in, start to create this content. We'll send everybody here a bit of a summary of what we've covered today. So you have the links for the videos, for the tutorials, for the documentation, the examples. And what I'm challenging you to do is to log in, create your account in Instruqt, and start creating some great content. And just know we have a great Slack channel, Instruct General. Love you to join there and ask questions. We have a lot of engagement across a lot of people there that really, it's a fun community of people sharing ideas. And if you want to, you can, if you want to just directly email us, just send an email to hello@instruqt.com. Send me, so if you don't send your email address now, just send it over that way and I will make sure that you get your account created. Okay, so thank you, Devin. But I think, so Sean, if I understand correctly, you've kind of answered the questions that came through live. Is there anything else that we want to cover for today? Did I miss anything in terms of what folks were asking
you
for?
covered all the bases, and I was happy to see Palace Arcade come out of the archives again.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I was actually playing it for about 10 minutes before I started the webinar. So
it's hard to resist.
It's hard to resist Donkey Kong. Yeah, exactly.
Little trivia, like Stranger Things fans will notice that's the name of the arcade in the show.
Ah, interesting. Sean, you are a plethora of knowledge. Okay, everyone.
Okay,
I think
thanks,
that's it. Of course. Thank you for helping out today, Sean. I appreciate it. Thanks for everyone who joined us today. Again, strongly encourage you, if we don't have your email address already, either hit us up on Slack at Instruct General or send us an email at hello@instruqt.com. We will get you your access to your training environment, and we look forward to working with you. If you have questions, obviously you could reach out to myself or Sean. We're available for you. I suspect we might have, you might want to use the docs and those things, so we'll send out a summary of those links as well. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, DJ.
Thank you.